You know what? I wish I could stand here and say that I'm not nervous, but I am. So, in my mind, all of you are naked. Could I have a clicker, please? All right. So, I'm going to talk to you guys about something that means a whole lot to me. And if I don't click properly, please don't kill me. All right. Are you ready? Yes. Let's do this. Tough love. How to teach for failure. So I'm an educator. And I have the best job in the world. What makes my job interesting is the fact that I get to work with the human mind. I get to work with young people who are seeking themselves and trying to create a future for themselves. Now, during my teaching, I've had some very rich experiences. And one of those experiences I would love to share with you today. It is the failure experience. Now, for you to understand what I do, I need to tell you a little bit about my children, because my students are my children. My children come to me after they have experienced one of the most painful things in their lives. Namely, they cannot graduate. In Dutch, we call them the langstudeerders. And in English, we say they are simply students who cannot do what they need to do. Now, what I have learned about these students is that when they are unable to complete their goal, they experience what we call an existential crisis. Now, this existential crisis is visible in two things. First off, in the interpretation that these young people give to the fact that they have experienced failure. The second thing is the way they react to failure. Now that interests me because I'm a teacher, but I'm also a scientist. So I asked myself, why are my students experiencing an existential crisis? What's going on with them? I turned to academics and to science because that is my background. And this is what I found. I found that we are raising a trophy generation. That's an idea where we say, if you show up, if you dress up, then you are good enough. And I'm saying we got to stop all of that. Because what that does is it teaches our children that failure should be avoided at all costs. I will explain you why. This is what happens. Many times as parents, as educators, we say to our children, you are awesome. You are the best. And as long as you believe that you are the best, then you will be the best. Here's the problematic thing about that. I believe that I'm a millionaire, but I'm not. Right? I'm a millionaire in blessings, but I'd love to have €1,000,000. But getting back to my point, when we tell our children that they are the best, and that they are talented, and they are gifted, and they are good, we are in fact doing the opposite of what we want to do. And that's why I say, many of the things that we do to help and to motivate our students and our children don't help them to become successful. What it teaches them is that they must always avoid failure. Why? What happens? This is what happens. When we give our children compliments based on their talent, or when we praise their ability, we are actually telling our children this: you are so good, you are infallible. Now, what does that do to them? If I am infallible, and if I am so good, then I don't need to do the work because I was born this way. But if you were born this way, that's problematic when you experience failure because then your belief system crashes. Now, as I said, why does that happen? That happens because we live in a world where we tell people, you don't have to put in the work. If you were born talented, if you were educated, if your parents are rich, if you believe enough in yourself, you will change yourself. You won't need anything else. But change is not supposed to be easy. When change is easy, it doesn't change you. And if we are going to have another world, a different world, we need to change ourselves. But like I said, I'm an educator. And when I get these students around me and they are crying and they are upset about what happens to them, they say to me, Mevrouw Molina, you know something? I was a model student. In the 3 years of my academic progression, I always got A's or B's, maybe a few C's, but I was a perfect student. And since I'm a perfect student, how can I not do this thing? I will tell you why. When we as adults, as parents, teach our children about success, we teach them that the key to success is to avoid failure. When we say to our children that the key to success is to avoid failure, we actually make our children failure avoiders and not necessarily success seekers. Now, what's the difference between a failure avoider and a success seeker? A failure avoider says, I do things because I have to. I do things because I don't want to be a loser. I do things because I want to keep up with the Joneses, and I want to be the best that I can be, because otherwise the world doesn't want me. And it's true. Because when people don't fit into our categories of what is successful, we dump them aside and we say to them, you're not good enough, you're a loser. And all those children that the world makes into losers come into my classroom, and I get to raise them. But how do I do that? Well, like I said, I'm a teacher. So I turned to science and academics. And I decided to find a way to educate my students for success, but to make them success seekers and not failure avoiders. This is what I did. First, I taught my students that the only way to become competent is through effort. You have to do the work. Can you say that with me? You have to do the, all right. You got to do the work. If you don't want to work, then you will never achieve your goals. Competency through effort. Then I taught myself, because if I'm going to be a teacher, then I need to teach myself first so I can teach my students after. And then I realized that when we want to adjust behavior, when we want our children to do better, we use negative reinforcements. We say to them, if you do that, that will be the consequence, negative consequence. Or sometimes we say, like I say sometimes to my daughters, if you clean your room, you're gonna get a gift. And we give them a gift for that behavior. But the thing about that is, negative reinforcements teach our children that they should avoid a consequence. But what we need to do is teach them the power of positive consequences. Like you all are here today, right? It's a treat, isn't it? You are here because it's a treat. You're being a better person. You learned something new. Some of y'all are going to even fall in love with somebody you met here today. Hallelujah. So, what are we going to do? I'm going to use positive consequence. I'm going to take my students and say to them, this experience that you had allows you to grow. And you are a blessed individual if you can still grow in this crazy world. Then I say, I will adjust my language. You too. You will stop speaking about yourself as I'm good and I'm great. You will start to say, I'm a hard worker. I will go that extra mile. I will invest my energy. And you will also change feedback. Because I know that some teachers aren't very good at giving feedback. You know, they say, well, this is a lazy student. This is a rude student, so I won't give something positive. I will just say, you failed. When I give my students feedback, I avoid giving them feedback about who they are. I try to teach them that my job is to guide your process, not categorize your person. So I say to them, thank you. Allison said, I don't even have to worry about my time, so I'm just doing my thing. So when you give feedback, you don't say to the person, you were not good enough. No, you say, you are not there yet. Repeat with me. You are not there yet. All right. Because when you say to people, you were not there yet, you show them that there is room for growth, right? And as long as there is life, as long as there is a possibility of life, there is room to grow. All right, I said to myself, I need something else. Because I saw the difference in my students when they started to talk about their process and not about themselves so much. I needed a thing. So I turned to a man that I admire. He's a psychologist, and his name is E. Scott Geller. If you leave today and you don't remember me, which I doubt, remember E. Scott Geller. He says, we need to empower our children. And we empower them by caring about them genuinely. So what do? We give our children tools. We help them to find out what is impeding their learning process, and we give them strategies to do that. When I learned this lesson, I said to myself, I am going to make a difference for my students, but for the two little girls that I have on this world who actually pay me. My daughters are the future. Your children are the future as well. What do we need to create a resilient future? We need tough love. And why do we need tough love? Tough love says, I care about you so much that I'm going to teach you to be competent. When I teach you to be competent, I give you the right strategies to achieve your goal. Because in this world, we tell people you must have goals, but we never teach people how to achieve their goals. And then when they fail, when they don't know what to do, we look at them and we say, oh, poor you. You are such a loser. What we need to do is have a relationship where we love our children, but we love them so much that we don't break who they can become by giving them an inflated ego. We teach them to work. We teach them to embrace failure. We teach them that what happens to them says nothing about who they are, but says solely something about their circumstances. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to help me to stop raising failure avoiders and raise success seekers. You know why? Because if our children do not become resilient, we have no future. Do you want a future? Let me see the hands of all the people who want a future. So then, stand up. Stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Stand up. I know, I'm a teacher, so you got to do what I say. Stand up and say with me, I will raise success seekers, and not failure avoiders. All right. Thank you.